Unaware his wife was the daughter of a secret trillionaire, he signed the divorce papers, mocking her until the judge read her father's will. What she did next crushed him and made him regret forever. Daniel Morrison had spent 5 years belittling Elena Carter, treating her like she was nothing more than the plain-faced woman who cooked his meals and ironed his shirts, completely unaware that the quiet woman he dismissed so easily carried a last name that controlled empires from the shadows. The courtroom had been just another stage for his arrogance that Tuesday morning, but the leather-bound will the judge unsealed would turn his smug confidence into a nightmare. He'd replay every sleepless night for the rest of his life. She'd sat there in her second-hand dress, hands folded, saying nothing while he'd laughed about finally being free from his worthless wife, completely blind to the fact that her silence wasn't weakness. The document in Judge Richardson's trembling hands contained revelations that would reshape everything: power, wealth, and a daughter's inheritance that made Daniel's entire net worth look like pocket change found between couch cushions. What Elena Carter did with that inheritance, with that power, with the truth her father had hidden until his final breath, would systematically dismantle every piece of the life Daniel thought he'd built. How could a man so obsessed with status and appearances have missed every single clue that his wife's family wasn't just wealthy? Why had Elena spent half a decade accepting his cruel treatment when she could have destroyed him with a single phone call? What exactly did her father's will contain that made a seasoned judge's voice crack while reading it aloud? The morning Daniel Morrison decided to divorce his wife started like any other morning, in their small apartment on the wrong side of Philadelphia. But what made it different was the finality in his voice when he slid the papers across their scratched breakfast table. Elena Carter Morrison stood at the stove, flipping pancakes with the same methodical precision she applied to everything in their marriage, completely unaware that her husband had already mentally checked out of their relationship 6 months prior. "I'm done, Elena," Daniel announced, straightening his tie in the reflection of their microwave. The burgundy silk had cost him $300, money he'd spent without telling her, the same way he'd spent money on Rebecca Chen, his paralegal, for the past year. "Sign the papers and let's both move on with our lives." Elena's hand paused mid-flip, the spatula hovering over the pan, but she didn't turn around. Her shoulders, always slightly hunched as if trying to make herself smaller, remained perfectly still. The pancakes started to burn at the edges, filling the kitchen with the acrid smell of scorched batter. "There's nothing to discuss," Daniel continued, pulling on his jacket, the expensive charcoal one Elena had saved for 3 months to buy him for Christmas. "You knew this marriage was a mistake from the beginning. I mean, look at you, look at this place. I'm 32 years old, making 6 figures at Hartford and Associates, and I'm living like I'm still in college." The truth was different, but Daniel had reconstructed reality so many times that he believed his own revision. 5 years earlier, he'd been a struggling law school graduate, drowning in debt, working as a junior associate at a firm that barely noticed his existence. Elena had been a secretary at the same firm, quiet and unremarkable, but she'd smiled at him in the break room one day, and he'd been lonely enough to smile back. Their courtship had been brief, 3 months of coffee dates and movies before Daniel proposed, not out of overwhelming love, but because Elena seemed safe. She didn't demand much, didn't ask questions, didn't need expensive restaurants or flashy gifts. She'd even offered to keep working after marriage, contributing her modest salary to their household, while Daniel's student loans devoured his paycheck.